Part 148. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 1474. Oh. What's the latest information on Jia Yan? Could it be that his strength has improved again? The two God Emperors were shocked by the words of the God Emperor in the castle. That's right, the news I just received is that Jia Yan has actually reached the mid-level star level, and his strength has increased by leaps and bounds, and he can even kill a God King. The castle God Emperor said this. Can you even kill the God King? The two God Emperors were startled, and then smiled slightly. We are going to do it ourselves, so whether he is promoted or not, whether he can defeat the title God King is meaningless. Don't you think so? It turns out that the two of you are planning to do it yourself. This doesn't matter. For us, the strength of a titled God King is only one move or two moves. Even if he is a little stronger than the title God King, it will only be the same. The most he can do is escape from our hands for a while, not to mention, if you two are planning to attack together, the two God Emperors will capture him in the first moment. When the castle God Emperor said these words, he was still a little bitter, because the way he said it, he knew that if the two God Emperors decided to take action themselves, as the weaker party, he would not be able to gain any benefits. But the two God Emperors did not actually say that they would do it themselves. Instead, he invited the God Emperor to hunt down and capture Jia Yan with him. Jia Yan's strength and talent are very strange, and now he has improved. In addition, we do not belong to the God Emperor in your area, and it is always not so convenient to do things, so inviting you to act together is also a precautionary measure. The other two God Emperors were not as careless as that God Emperor. Especially in their demeanor, they seemed to know more about Jia Yan, so they would not underestimate this evolved beast who had only reached the mid-level of a star. Of course, the two God Emperors had been watching the news about Jia Yan before coming to the star area. An evolved beast that has reached the stellar level will be an extremely terrifying threat to the entire star field. Especially if someone with Jia Yan's strength has reached the middle level of a star, then his strength will reach a level that others cannot believe. They even doubted that the evolved beasts became more terrifying as they reached the star level. So after reaching the current mid-level star level, would Jia Yan's strength be possible? Kill the enemy beyond the level? Of course, even if he has this ability in the future, he has just made a breakthrough now, because one of the two God Emperors almost stopped Jia Yan before. At that time, Jia Yan was just a person who has reached the peak of the initial stage of a star. So he has just made a breakthrough now. Even if the two God Emperors think highly of Jia Yan, they cannot think that he, who has just reached the middle level of the star, can pose any threat to the existence of the God Emperor. So they are also anxious. If they bring another God Emperor, even if there is another accident, there is no possibility of losing, right? The three God Emperors, even if they are an evolved beast that has reached the mid-level strength of a star, are unlikely to be able to resist and will definitely be captured or killed by them. After all, they are God Emperors, so they still have some confidence. The three God Emperors negotiated quickly and flew out of the star field in an instant. The God Emperor from the castle, without much doubt, appeared in their team along with the two God Emperors. After all, for the God Emperor, it is not that simple to kill him. He is also confident that with his own trump card, even if the two God Emperors want to attack him or do something, he will have a certain chance of escape. So he dared to follow the two God Emperors. Of course, the two God Emperors were actually the beings who had been chasing Jia Yan from the land where Jia Yan and the others stayed last time. Their goal was Jia Yan, not the god who wanted to find this starry sky. What's the trouble? A battle between God Emperors is generally very rare to happen. Even if it happens, it will attract the attention of a God Emperor. A God Emperor, that is, a high-level star creature from the outside world, is only a little bit away from the galaxy level, which is the so-called God Emperor in this great realm of gods. Of course, generally speaking, the God Emperor wants to reach the level of a God Emperor. Strength still requires great opportunities and materials, but this is already the strongest person under the God Emperor, and the God Emperors will naturally care about their life and death. When you reach the level of the God Emperor, there are fewer wars between each other. For the God Emperor, what he cares about is the strength and life and death of the entire race, because even if the divine realm looks powerful on the surface, it still has a large territory. Under the gaze of the strong men in the outside universe, they are still walking on thin ice. The strong God Emperors usually defend enemies from the outside world, so of course they also want one or several God Emperors to come out of the God Emperor to deal with them. To help. It is a pity that it is much more difficult for the strong men in the divine realm to reach the God Emperor, that is, the galaxy level, than the previous levels. Even with the absolute numerical advantage, they have better creatures who have reached the God Emperor. But the God Emperor simply wanted to become a God Emperor, which at that time was equivalent to a fool's dream. In short, if something happens to me, these two God Emperors will definitely be punished. They don't think too well. Plus they know so much about Jia Yan. It doesn't look like they want to deal with me. So I should be fine. The God Emperor of the castle looked at the two God Emperors flying in front of him, and an unusual light flashed in his eyes. Then he followed the flight paths of the two God Emperors and galloped away. Anyway, he had already taken out the battlefield where Jia Yan killed a group of God Kings, so there was nothing wrong with the two leading the way. In the starry sky, the speed of the three figures was actually not slow, and they were moving back and forth in the space quickly. This shows that after reaching the lower level of the stars, that is, the level of the God Emperor, every strong person will have his own way of flying and faster travel methods. After all, it would be inconvenient for the God Emperor to take a battleship for everything, so it would be better to master the ability to fly. Of course, there are some God Emperors who have no advantage in speed, but they can use their own God Emperor strength to achieve a space-distorting plan similar to Jia Yan's. Even if they are more powerful, it is still a good way to move forward. Under the rapid flight of these three God Kings, Jia Yan and his subordinates wiped out a group of God Kings on the battlefield, but they quickly approached. You too, this Jia Yan should still be inside. His battleship cannot move quickly. We only need to catch a turtle in an urn to capture him. When they finally arrived at the end of the field, it was the local castle God Emperor who said these words to the God Emperors next to him. After all, he is the host. If he doesn't say anything or make any arrangements, others will definitely think that he has no intention of cooperation. Fortunately, the two God Emperors did not express any particular dissatisfaction with this God Emperor. The three God Emperors looked at each other and flew towards the area with an asteroid. And just when these three God Emperors were approaching this area, as expected, the Edisha was flying outside the universe, and there were large pieces of minerals that were docked by the Edisha on a large asteroid. The physical hatch is receiving quickly. Hurry up, I feel danger is approaching. Master, I feel very bad. Editha was flying in the sky. Don't make trouble, I'm still practicing. Jia Yan was sitting on a piece of asteroid material next to the Editha, silently adjusting his fighting power and the feeling of energy in his body. For him, the last war was definitely a battle that greatly improved his strength. You know, after every mutation, Jia Yan will have a period of rapid improvement, especially after the battle, the speed of improvement of his strength will be greatly increased and advanced. Just like this time, his strength improved faster than before. Because just after his promotion, there was a group of God Kings who fought a life and death battle with him. Under the stimulation of such a battle, it would be difficult for him not to improve his strength. So he continued his retreat, and his strength was still improving by leaps and bounds. Not only him, but a group of subordinates around Jia Yan also have a better understanding of strength at this moment. Originally, according to their physical talent conditions, it would be difficult for them to make any progress in such a short period of time, even if they had some insights. After all, there are differences in talent. But this time is different. This time, after they realized the hidden help from Jia Yan's promotion, they got a lot of yin and yang power, and then fought with others. Under such circumstances, what they realized, it's not the feeling of the original strength, but the feeling of the yin and yang system. In the yin and yang system, their strength is just beginning. Of course, there are many things that can be improved, so they all started to retreat one by one. Maybe, after this retreat, there will be one or two who can slightly improve their strength to the mid-level star, or the level of God King. This makes Jia Yan look forward to it, because his next enemies will become more and more powerful. If the strength of a group of subordinates is still at the level of gods, they will not be able to help him. Fortunately, as the strength of this group of subordinates increases, it is more in line with Jia Yan's ideas. Okay, now let's take a look at my strength. If I can improve it a little bit more, will my sense of ripple power be able to make even a God King completely restrained by myself? Jia Yan was thinking, in the process of killing the God King Gishin this time, although his ripple power also made achievements, it was a bit difficult. As for the power of ripples, as Jia Yan's only powerful method that can deal with enemies on a large scale, it is impossible for Jia Yan to give up on it. And this ability seems to have a sequel, so Jia Yan plans to continue to develop it. Strength cannot be improved by leaps and bounds in a short while. Jia Yan also knows this, so he retreated for a while and began to practice getting used to his strength in the universe. Jia Yan's training was very simple, that is, he kept thinking about the whole process of fighting several God Kings in his head. Even though he was one-sided in this battle, nothing is perfect, especially since this was his first battle after just mutating, so his performance in the battle was somewhat unsatisfactory. So he was studying to see if there was any opportunity to improve his own strength and have a better way to deal with the group of God Kings under the same conditions. For this move, I should use my hind legs to block it. After blocking it, I can then use my front foot. This way I can win more easily. Not to mention, this kind of imaginative training is quite useful, especially after Jia Yan finished thinking about the battle against Gishin God King, he gained more. Even the unilateral killing of Lily to kill Tiangi God King later, he also thought about it and analyzed his fighting moves. Lily, come here, I will teach you some of the shortcomings that were revealed in the last battle. Suddenly, Jia Yan called Lily, who was in retreat. This subordinate is not like others, who is improving his strength. Now she felt a little hollow. Because she didn't know where she should go, even if she was in Jia Yan's team, she was, but in fact, she no longer has her hometown or her parents, and she has just finished her revenge and has no goals, so she doesn't know how she should continue to work hard. Even as a god, her desire to survive is extremely powerful. Unfortunately, in such a situation, she doesn't know how to comfort herself. Maybe she can figure it out on her own, but she doesn't know how long it will take. But during this period Jia Yan called her. "My lord, what do you want to teach me?" Jia Yan told the approaching Lily lightly about her combat disadvantages revealed in the last battle, especially those moves of the yin and yang system she used, and said that she needed to practice them again. After Lily nodded in agreement, not long after, Jia Yan suddenly felt that there was an astonishing momentum emerging from the place where he was in retreat. Lily wants to break through? Feeling that the goat god was actually the first person to break through to the mid-level star, Jia Yan was a little stunned. Because many of these subordinates have been stuck at the pass, and Lily is one of them, but Jia Yan never thought that she would be the first. As shown before, Lily's character is a bit weak, especially after her parents died, she didn't know what to do. Such a personality will result in the inability to break through for many reasons, such as having too many unnecessary thoughts when trying to pass the level, or not being as ruthless as others as your strength improves. But Jia Yan felt that Lily was very cruel to him, and she was not focused on anything when she was promoted. Just when Lily was making a breakthrough in the starry sky, Jia Yan, who was feeling the breakthrough feeling, suddenly felt a strange feeling like wind rushing through his body. Run, run, run. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 1475. Run, run, run. After Jia Yan was startled, he suddenly, like a frightened little white rabbit, roared angrily at his subordinates who were still practicing or resting around him. Afterwards, the subordinates, like belated fools, suddenly felt the three faint terrifying forces in the vacuum. This power is too exaggerated, much stronger than the Jia Yan they saw. God Emperor. This feeling caused a group of junior star or god-level subordinates to change their expressions one by one, and then they immediately flew back without caring about cleaning the battlefield. What is the God Emperor? To the creatures at the primary level of stars, they are the sky and the earth. Yes, even among stellar-level creatures, they are all considered stellar level, but one is the elementary level and the other is the high level. For ordinary creatures, these two levels of creatures are just like ordinary creatures. Here, the difference between an ordinary creature and a heaven-level creature. Even if a group of Jia Yan subordinates, together, can barely fight against a creature at the middle level of a star, or should be said to be a creature at the level of a god king, to a god emperor, they are like ants. No different. As for Jia Yan, it was hard for him to say, but now that he could not face a god emperor level creature head on, he still didn't want to face him. Especially his current combat effectiveness has not yet reached its peak after mutation. At Jia Yan's reminder, the Odessa quickly flew backwards. However, due to the lifting limitations of the aircraft, this huge body is the slowest. Asshole, how come there are three god emperors coming, getting closer and closer, and their flying speed actually reaches the speed of light? Jia Yan felt from a distance that the flying speed of each of the approaching group of god emperors actually reached the terrifying speed of light. This made Jia Yan a little unbelievable. In subspace, if he flies into a very deep subspace, he can fly at the speed of light, but that is subspace, and if he is in normal space, he will not be able to reach the speed of light no matter what. But the group of God Emperor level creatures that arrived showed a flying speed that shocked even Jia Yan. Their speed actually reaches the speed of light, which means that from the perspective of people on Earth, it is completely impossible for any living thing or aircraft to reach that speed. Of course, people on Earth now know that the speed limit is just a joke, because living creatures have too many ways to break through the shackles of the universe. But for ordinary creatures, wanting to reach the speed of light was almost like a fantasy. Even Jia Yan did not think that such a being was born after reaching the middle stage of a star. But now, he actually saw three God Emperor creatures appearing at the speed of light in his eyes. Even this was the speed at which they arrived. If they had been on the road earlier, they would not have been as fast. To be fair, with such speed, if nothing else, Jia Yan wouldn't be able to dodge if he were hit directly with speed. No, they are not complete entities, but they use unique methods. Suddenly, Jia Yan saw the three approaching God Emperors. As a creature that had reached the middle level of a star, his perception did not rely entirely on his eyes. Otherwise, how could he have seen these three existences flying at the speed of light? He used his senses and saw the appearance of the three of them from a distance. Each of these three God Emperor level experts, that is, mid-level to high-level stars with equal strength, each has a unique way of flying. One of them is like Jia Yan using the subspace, flying in the sunken space, but it is different from Jia Yan's method of flying into the deep subspace as much as possible. He does the opposite and uses the subspace. Interspersed with the normal space, the ripples are constantly created. This speed is definitely much worse than Jia Yan's speed, but under the urging of a God Emperor level powerhouse, his speed is not slow after all. After all, he uses brute force and a little skill. It can be regarded as borrowing the wonder of subspace. On the other side, one of the two god emperors used the power within the gravitational wave system, and the other seemed to teleport, really chasing the two god emperor friends, without falling behind. This is. The moment Jia Yan saw the three god emperors, he knew that he was definitely no match for these three god emperors, because that was already a huge gap in life levels. After all, as a creature that has just reached the interstellar intermediate level, Jia Yan's strength is still a little bit behind what he will be able to achieve in the interstellar intermediate level in the future. Now he sees the three god queens from a distance and feels the level and the essential gap in life. Even if you can't beat it, you still have to try to see if there is any way to stop it. Because the Aditya must not have an accident. If something happens to it, then if they go deep into the realm of gods at such a depth, they will definitely be surrounded and arrested like mice crossing the street by countless gods or strong men from the realm of gods in the future, even if they can escape once or twice, but absolutely unable to escape forever. Therefore, there is absolutely no room for error in the Aditya. Snort. Jia Yan snorted coldly. He actually sent a message to his retreating subordinates, telling them to flee first while he stayed behind. What? Sir, you actually have to face a group of god emperors? This. Several subordinates felt their bodies and minds shocked after hearing Jia Yan's words. Because they never thought that Jia Yan was such a selfless person, and they even felt that Jia Yan was actually very selfish. Of course, they heard it immediately. Jia Yan told them behind his back and asked them to take care of the Aditya. Only then did I know that Jia Yan was doing it for the Aditya, the only means of escape. But they still didn't let them go up to fight a group of god emperors, which was already very good to them. Therefore, this group of subordinates took Jia Yan's advice and quickly escaped one by one, but they were also distracted. At the side of the Aditya, while using energy to help it increase its speed, it escaped crazily. Among the pursuers, the three god emperors saw a group of creatures from Jia Yan's team running away in front of them. They were angry at first and wanted to catch up quickly, especially in the direction of Jia Yan. Others could escape. But Jia Yan absolutely cannot escape. But then, what shocked the three god emperors deeply was that Jia Yan, the strongest man who should have escaped the fastest, did not escape, but stayed in place. Does this guy want to deal with us? I think he is stupid. Several god emperors were puzzled by Jia Yan's actions, especially as a leader. He felt unable to escape and prevented his subordinates from gathering around him, and then used their bodies as a shield in exchange for a glimmer of escape. Chance actually did the opposite, letting his subordinates escape while he stayed behind. Is this leadership? Perfection is something only subordinates would do. In fact, what they didn't know was that Jia Yan felt that his subordinates, at least at this level of strength, would not be of any help to the three god emperors and would even get in the way, so he refused to let them stay where they were. But Jia Yan himself did not stay here because he wanted to die, nor did he want to be captured without mercy, but he had many trump cards. Even when dealing with a group of divine emperors, he has a certain degree of confidence in escaping. Cut it off for me. As Jia Yan watched the arrival of the three god emperors, his expression became increasingly colder. Then, traces of impurity cells from his body were slowly falling out of his body. Don't forget, Jia Yan's body has antimatter properties, and this property requires the use of Jia Yan's body matter. It turned out that if he wanted to use this characteristic of his, he would need to injure himself or even harm himself, but that was different now. His body had just mutated, and his body was full of mutated remnants. Although Jia Yan had been able to remove these substances long ago, he always felt a little regretful, so he did not remove them. I didn't expect it to actually work in such a situation. After these substances flew out of the body, they flew into the surrounding subspace, or slowly spread out in inconspicuous corners. Jia Yan's body can be controlled from a remote place. Therefore, as long as Jia Yan wants to detonate these substances, he can do it at any time. In fact, with his strength, under the current situation, the degree of detonation that can be detonated is definitely more powerful than when he used this move before. I don't know how much. But Jia Yan only used the detached matter. Although he was only detached for a short period of time, the antimatter of this substance had lost a large part of its activity for some unknown reason. In other words, the energy power was much smaller. But this is enough. You must know his original self-destruction energy. Exploding stars is like exploding fools. He can kill many people in an instant. And now that he has reached the midstellar level, under such circumstances, it is hard to say to what extent the self-destruction power of this antimatter body has reached. What Jia Yan himself didn't know, the three god emperors coming across from him were even less clear about it. Seeing Jia Yan, the evolved beast that had expanded a circle, the three god emperors first froze, and then saw Jia Yan staying in place. Even if they started to escape now, it would be too late. They wanted to laugh again. This Jia Yan actually wants to stop us. It is really a big race. I guess I have never fought against the God Emperor, so I want to try it out. But the God Emperor is their high-level stellar powerhouse. He must have never seen how powerful the high-level powerhouse is. I thought that with my own strength, I could escape from our three great God Emperors. Who says otherwise? This guy's self-confidence is not ordinary. It shows that he still has some confidence. If there is something later, we will kill him. It is better to kill such an existence. Yes, the Evolution Beast clan is really unbelievable. He has just reached the middle level of the star, and yet he is so arrogant that he dares to fight us. He probably has some means. Others say that the Evolution Beast has the strength to jump to the next level to fight. Now that he has just been promoted, he will definitely not be able to do it, but if he is allowed to grow for a while, he might actually have the strength to fight against the existence of the God Emperor. That would not be good. Kill. The three God Emperors had already talked about it, and even if they killed Jia Yan, they couldn't let him go. Of course, it would be best to capture him alive. After all, there are more places for living evolved beasts to experiment. But it's okay to die. The evolved beast is so terrifying that even if you want to capture the creature alive, you don't know how many have died. So it's easier to kill, which is simpler and easier. As for the other group of creatures they saw, there were stellar-level powerhouses, as well as their divine beings. They didn't care about this group of elementary-level stellar beings. They could catch them if they could, but they could run away if they couldn't. It would be troublesome for them to catch such a group of weaklings. Jia Yan, why didn't you run away this time? The God Emperor who had met Jia Yan last time burst into laughter when he saw Jia Yan. It's just that Jia Yan's body is much larger than the last time he saw it, and his strength has even improved greatly. This makes the God Emperor both shocked and deeply frightened. This evolved beast really cannot be kept, its progress is too fast. There are several people who have come all the way to see me. Of course I can't be rude. Seniors, why don't we sit down and have a good talk? Jia Yan spoke calmly to the group of approaching God Emperors. Of course he didn't want to take action if he could, but these God Emperors would definitely not give him so many opportunities. Don't be stupid, Jia Yan. No matter whether you do something or not, you will become our prisoner. If you are more honest, you will suffer less. Several God Emperors came to Jia Yan, and then one of them, regardless of being an elder, came to Jia Yan in an instant and slapped Jia Yan. This speed was so fast that even if Jia Yan used all his eyesight, he could hardly see clearly. The size of a God Emperor creature reaches about 10 kilometers, and some are even larger. Therefore, Jia Yan, who is 4 or 5 kilometers in size, is as small as a little monster to them. The huge claws struck, making Jia Yan feel his heart tremble, as if he felt like the whole world was grabbing at him. Burst. That divine emperor creature and the two divine emperors on the side all thought that this move was absolutely perfect. Jia Yan suddenly roared. Boom. In the vacuum, there was a sudden shock, and a huge explosion shockwave suddenly appeared between Jia Yan and the God Emperor creature. What? The God Emperor was already prepared for the change when Jia Yan roared, but he never expected that this change would happen right in front of him. The giant claw he used to attack was knocked back by a loud earthquake under the impact of a sudden explosion of an explosive that was invisible to the naked eye. Then this huge creature actually moved its entire body backwards for several kilometers. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 1476. Even though the injury was not serious, his claws were still covered in smoke and dust, as if he had been slightly injured. This scene made everyone, whether it was the three divine emperors or the subordinates of Jia Yan's squad who were escaping, completely dumbfounded when they saw this scene. What's this? No one knew what the exploding object was. But none of this prevented them from knowing that Jia Yan, a creature that had just reached the mid-level star level, actually repelled a blow from a powerful God Emperor in a head-on situation. No matter what method was used, this method was his strength, which was something they had never heard of. This. The retreating God Emperor, the same God Emperor who forced Jia Yan and the others to flee from the previous starry sky last time, felt unbelievable at this moment. Although the attack just now was not his full strength, it was definitely an attack using some strength from him. But Jia Yan was able to block it in a unique way. Explosive power, what is this? What kind of people are the three God Emperors? At the same time as the explosion occurred, they saw unknown explosives around them. Of course, only the more obvious ones can be seen, the ones in the subspace are not so easy to find, and even the small particles cannot be seen clearly for a while. There is such a thing. Is this the strength of the evolved beast? Exaggeration. Several God Emperors felt extremely incredible about Jia Yan's combat effectiveness. To them, Jia Yan really has a different feeling. If they hadn't known that he was an evolved beast and knew that the evolved beast family has amazing strength, they would definitely think that Jia Yan is some kind of strong person. A doppelganger or something like that. But Jia Yan is definitely not that kind of thing, and for a creature whose original strength has only just reached the mid-level star level, it is too exaggerated to be able to achieve such combat power. Perhaps you may think that I am just an intermediate star who has just been promoted. You three God Emperors come together and can definitely crush me easily. But if you want to try, you can try your best to see if I will be defeated by you. 3 crushes. Jia Yan's voice was faint, but at this moment, he was completely full of momentum. This. The 3 divine emperors all had solemn expressions. However, they had no fear of Jia Yan. After being shocked by Jia Yan's words, a God Emperor reacted directly. This guy is just stalling for time. Let's continue. Yes, when the aircraft leaves, he will definitely escape. The other 2 divine emperors also knew Jia Yan's thoughts instantly. Because there is only one reason for Jia Yan to stay here to fight with them, and that is to use the only vehicle that allows him to escape from the realm of gods. He must escape first. As long as the vehicle leaves, he can use his subspace talent to find a way to escape. So at this time, the 3 God Emperors immediately learned about Jia Yan's idea, and launched an attack regardless of it. After all, in their opinion, Jia Yan's difficulty level has become even higher. Having just entered the middle level of the star, they were able to use unique methods to create obstacles with a random attack on a God Emperor. This was definitely a level of strength that they had never thought of. If he had the idea of leaving, with the subspace talent of this evolved beast, there might be a possibility of escaping from their control, so it was definitely better for them to take action first. Boom! In the sky, there is a force like waves rising from the sky and the earth. Under such power, Jia Yan is in front of the power. As long as he is affected by this power, he will definitely suffer huge damage directly. But this force was suddenly blocked by a sudden explosion some distance away from Jia Yan, directly blocking him from a dangerous distance. This is when Jia Yan used another explosive that separated his body. You must know that antimatter is definitely one of the top forces in this universe. When completely positive and negative forces collide, the force that can be created is extremely terrifying. The nuclear weapons known to ordinary people on Earth are only explosive to a degree of completeness of a few percent. But antimatter is different. When they are annihilated with normal matter, they can produce 100% power. Of course, this power also depends on the mass of antimatter or the density of matter, but no matter how you look at it, the explosion level of the remnants of Jia Yan's body that exploded now cannot be underestimated. After all, part of his body contains antimatter. When Jia Yan needs it, if this antimatter directly comes into contact with other positive matter in his body, it will cause an extremely shocking explosion. Huge sound waves, or waves of explosions, are constantly ringing in this cosmic space. Even though there is actually no sound in the universe, because the entire space has been turbulent, these huge sounds still pass through the vibrations and were transmitted far and wide. Huh? Is this caused by adults? It's amazing. Your Excellency has just reached the middle level of the star, and you can actually fight like this with 3 god emperors. The evolution beast clan is too exaggerated. On the side of the several subordinates who escaped with the Edissa, they all felt the shocking explosion in the rear, and then looked back, feeling unbelievable at the momentum of the battle over there. In their opinion, even if Jia Yan had a way to tangle with several god emperors, he would definitely have to use his subspace talent. But they didn't expect that Jia Yan actually didn't retreat into the subspace, and directly fought against a group of god emperors, which greatly exceeded their understanding of Jia Yan's strength. They originally thought that Jia Yan's strength could at most destroy the god King Kishan, which was considered to be the ultimate, but at this moment, they realized that Jia Yan's strength actually had more fighting strength. In fact, they don't understand that Jia Yan's current strength is in a special period. But they were right about one thing. That's the limit of Jia Yan's strength, it's really unimaginable. This was one of the reasons why he was so unscrupulous after being promoted. Apart from the fact that he knew that with his current strength, the God Emperor could easily kill him, he was not too afraid of the existence of the God Emperor, even the extremely powerful ones. Of course, in terms of true strength, he can't catch up with others, but he is an evolved beast, and the hidden combat power that an evolved beast can use is really too much. Just like the residual fighting method he is using now, it is one of Jia Yan's hidden fighting abilities. Although this fighting ability seems to have nothing to do with his identity as an evolved beast, in fact it is precisely because he is an evolved beast. Only then would he be integrated into his body by the small antimatter tree, otherwise he would definitely be dead. So all of this is due to the physical constitution of the evolved beast, plus Jia Yan's own perseverance, plus a little bit of luck, which resulted in his strength being so explosive at this moment. Even if Jia Yan has no residue, as long as he fights his own injury and uses the body's own materials, that is, self-mutilation to cause a material explosion, the effect may be better, and it will definitely shock others. This Jia Yan is really tricky. As expected, the evolved beasts are an unreasonable race. They can do it by relying on their talent. To this extent, they have just reached the mid-level star level and are able to do it under the hands of our 3 god emperors. To such an extent. When Jia Yan was fighting with the 3 god emperors, the 3 god emperors looked at each other. They were god emperors, and they were so superior that even the god emperors had to respect their existence under certain circumstances. But now, in front of a creature that has just reached the middle level of a star and is not much different from a more powerful first-level star, he is actually helpless. This makes them completely unpredictable. Even an evolved beast can't cheat like this, right? These three god emperors were deeply frightened by Jia Yan's strength, as well as the talent and fighting power of the evolved beast clan. After all, when they saw the information about this race, they felt that it was just a powerful race, but they never expected that it could actually do this. What is called going against the heaven, this is called going against the heaven. What is called a monster, this is called a monster. Although the three god emperors were not suppressed by Jia Yan, at this moment, they were really stopped in their tracks by Jia Yan's explosive strength. Come on! I finally know why this clan of evolved beasts is so hated and strangled by all the stars. Just charge, if you don't kill this race, not to mention our divine realm, other star regions in the future will be frightened by him. This guy is just an evolved beast that has just reached the middle level of the star. And if he reaches the level of our God Emperor, which is the high level of the star, wouldn't he be able to kill us in an instant? It is said that the evolved beast, when they reach the lower level of the star, it will be the most terrifying time for their strength to explode. Is it possible that by then, he will be able to leap to the next level and fight in the galaxy? That would be too shocking. Killing or not killing is not enough. The three god emperors, while avoiding Jia Yan's explosives, nodded to the accomplices next to them. The three of them came from different forces, and two of them even came from places far further away than this star region. But at this moment, the sense of responsibility of the three of them to the great realm of the gods outweighed their personal feelings of gain and loss. He was instantly ready to kill Jia Yan. The three god emperors instantly ignored the explosions around them and rushed towards Jia Yan despite the possibility of being injured. Puff! Bang! Bang! The loud explosions caused the world to change color slightly. Countless explosives were in the direction of the path forward of the three powerful men, blocking their progress. But the three of them seemed to be determined to come to Jia Yan until they reached the Yellow River. Withstanding countless pressures, their bodies were finally directly injured by the antimatter bombs that exploded one after another. In fact, Jia Yan's antimatter bomb is not said to be so powerful that even the God Emperor cannot stop it, because his antimatter is only in a certain sense, not a complete antimatter. If it is a complete antimatter, it will definitely be able to. This group of God Emperors would suffer huge casualties, and could even be killed by a direct explosion. You must know that authentic antimatter is something that can blow up even the earth without using too much. Die. Against Jia Yan's explosives that looked like antimatter but didn't look like it, the first God Emperor finally came to Jia Yan. But before he came, Jia Yan had already felt his arrival. A crack suddenly opened in the subspace behind him, and Jia Yan retreated directly into the crack. His speed is naturally slower than that of the God Emperor, but with explosives blocking him and a little bit of anticipation, it is not difficult to do such a thing. Where to escape? At the entrance to the subspace that he retreated into, the God Emperor looked angry for a while. How could he be willing to be escaped like this by a creature that had just reached the middle level of a star? A God Emperor level power burst out with all its strength. It slammed into the entrance to the subspace that Jia Yan had just stepped into. And inside this subspace, Jia Yan certainly knew that the God Emperor behind him would not give up just like this. So when he first stepped into the subspace, he used all his speed and flew towards the very deep levels of the subspace. Find the bookstore. Suddenly a huge and shocking force came from behind. Jia Yan was also lightly swept away by this force. But this trace of it made him tremble all over, and he almost lost consciousness. This attack was too terrifying, with the power of a God Emperor, plus the power of his kingdom. A God Emperor can already contain the power of the kingdom of God in his casual strikes. Fortunately, Jia Yan instantly ran to the very deep level of the subspace. Once here, even the God Emperor's attack could not be said to be captured with one blow. Even if it is captured, there will be a lot of power failure. Just like in the rivers, lakes, and seas of the planet, bullets from thermal weapons can easily shoot hundreds or even thousands of meters in the air, and are still lethal. However, they cannot easily penetrate water sources such as rivers, lakes, and seas. It is transparent because the resistance of water is extremely huge. The same is true for deep-level spaces within subspaces, and the deeper you go, the greater the resistance. No kill. Outside the subspace, the God Emperor was very confident in his attack, but when he felt that inside the subspace, Jia Yan was still alive and kicking, his expression suddenly turned sinister. You too, it seems that Jia Yan is far more troublesome than we imagined. I suggest that you don't really hold anything back and use it directly if you have any unique tricks. Their aircraft has flown very close to us. It's hard to catch him fast enough. If we don't kill him, Jia Yan will probably escape. The God Emperor said this to the remaining two God Emperors. Okay, I won't hide my clumsiness. After all, I initiated this action. And this Jia Yan has a grudge against my starry sky. If I don't kill him, I will feel uneasy. Another God Emperor, the one who attacked Jia Yan in the previous starry sky place, said this. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 1477. I've already taken action. What else can I say? It's just that you have seen my trump card. Please don't tell it. I still have enemies. Although the other God Emperor hesitated, he gritted his teeth and said so. In fact, everyone has nothing to celebrate. Since it needs to be kept secret, it is naturally best for everyone to keep it secret. At that moment, Jia Yan, who was in the subspace, suddenly felt three extremely shocking auras exploding within the bodies of the three God Emperors. Are you going to get serious? There was a hint of gritted teeth in Jia Yan's eyes. He knew that this blow would bring disaster to him. And a group of God Emperors were all using their special skills. Under such circumstances, it also showed how eager these guys were to get rid of him. In other words, they felt a great threat to Jia Yan, so they wanted to kill him quickly. For Jia Yan, this can be regarded as a disguised honor. He has been replaced by a strong mid-level star, and he is also a mid-level star who has just been promoted. How can he get such treatment? But if he had a choice, Jia Yan definitely didn't want this kind of glory. A mid-level star has to face three God Emperors who are equivalent to the lower-level stars. Even if he is an evolved beast, there is nothing to be happy about and feel proud of. The pressure is overwhelming. The three God Emperors attacked directly. They used their trump cards one by one, which opened Jia Yan's eyes and gave him a lot of insights. After all, it is one level higher than Jia Yan, it can even be said to be 2 levels higher, because Jia Yan has just reached the Hengzhong level, and other people's insights, for Jia Yan, are many things that he can absorb. Moreover, the existence of the three great God Emperors used their own trump cards. Under such circumstances, the moves they used contained even more magic. Jia Yan instantly had a lot of thoughts about some of his moves. After learning from the special moves of these three God Emperors, he felt that he could understand a lot of things. But at this moment, it was not the moment for him to realize anything. A sudden burst of power, the explosion of three divine emperor powers, suddenly put Jia Yan in a desperate situation. Even if Jia Yan is in the subspace, the attacks of the three God Emperors can attack the subspace, and they are now sending three bombardments at the same time. Even if Jia Yan is now in the deepest place that he can reach instantly, but if the three of them attack, there is still a high chance that they will be able to hit Jia Yan. Sorry, these three guys actually want to kill me like this. Things were different from Jia Yan's imagination. He originally thought that these three god emperors wanted to capture Jia Yan himself, and they would definitely not kill him instantly. In that case, he could first delay for a period of time, and then use his subspace talent to escape quickly. But this idea was directly shattered by the three god emperors in front of them. This also shows that among the strong, no one is stupid. Jia Yan's subspace talent is so strong that if the three god emperors still think of capturing him alive, they would be really stupid. So at this moment, when they all used their attacks, Jia Yan himself wanted to slap himself in the face. The feeling of this battle is too depressing. The three god emperors are attacking and chasing them, and now they are using their trump card. I actually want to hold them back. You're careless. You won't be like this in the future. Jia Yan was slightly anxious, and when the energy of the three masters bombarded the subspace, his eyes suddenly glanced. As of now, we can only fight hard. Next to Jia Yan is an extremely twisted place. He remembered that when he had just been promoted, he had visited several similar places with serious distortions. It's just that he didn't see anything interesting at that time, but now he has no choice but to go in. In this severely distorted place, Jia Yan knows that it is very dangerous inside, and he is now in a deep level. There is not only a sixth dimensional but also a seventh dimensional subspace. The distorted place here is definitely more distorted than the subspace on the outer surface. If there is a change, Jia Yan does not expect it to play any other role. He only expects it to be able to resist most of the power of the three divine emperors chasing behind him. After resisting most of it and hitting him with the rest, Jia Yan felt that he still had a certain chance of survival. Three different types of God Emperor energies from behind flew towards him in an instant. And Jia Yan also rushed into the seriously distorted place at this moment. Well, this place is actually different from the severely distorted place outside. When Jia Yan just entered the twisted land, he suddenly felt that the twisted land in front of him was different from what he imagined. It turns out that this place is completely different from the distortion in the outside world. It is completely silent, but in this silence, there is infinite murderous intention. Because it's not that the distortion no longer exists, but that this distortion has been compressed to an extremely shocking degree. As soon as Jia Yan entered this twisted place, he instantly felt an amazing force that cut his body directly. What? This power can actually cut my body so easily. Jia Yan was stunned for a moment. He didn't know that his strength was actually at a subdimensional depth of about 6 or 7 degrees, and he was still injured. But the feeling of disbelief only lasted for a moment, because in addition to the slight pain of the cutting, the three shocking forces behind were the forces that Jia Yan should guard against the most. The power of the three divine emperors behind them instantly reduced their attack power in the subspace, but the aftermath was still unabated, and they suddenly attacked Jia Yan. Die. At that moment, the three strong men felt that Jia Yan would die. Even they know that their attack power will be reduced a lot when entering the subspace. But the aftermath is still not something that a creature that has just stepped into the mid-level stellar power can resist. This was already how much they thought highly of Jia Yan, and the strength of the three god emperors working together, so they absolutely did not believe that Jia Yan could still survive. I won't die. Jia Yan suddenly moved his body in that twisted place, but the twisting forces around him directly captured his body, making him completely unable to move. This. Jia Yan had no way to deal with the arrest in this twisted place. Even at this moment, he felt that his body could not move. It is indeed a very deep subspace distortion. For Jia Yan's strength, he would have to expend a lot of strength to escape from the subspace of about 1 degree in the outside world. But in this 6 or 7 degree subspace, this kind of the distortion was a force he couldn't resist. With him barely able to move, even if he could struggle out, it would take at least a lot of time. But he didn't have much time to give him. The three forces from behind penetrated this twisted land in an instant. In the subspace, a shocking storm suddenly swept up. Jia Yan could not have expected that in this space, he would be hit by a frontal bombardment from the outside world. The explosive power of those three shocking forces completely exceeded his expectations. Am I going to die? No, no, no. I will never die. My strength has not yet been fully demonstrated, and I am even an evolved beast creature with shocking talents. Do I want to die in a place like this? I don't want to. Jia Yan thought of a lot in an instant, but his body was still slowly and completely enveloped by the feeling of three powers. He was about to be completely swallowed up by these three forces. But just when these three forces were about to devour Jia Yan, suddenly, in the land of distortion, endless tiny distortions spontaneously came behind Jia Yan, and the distortions faced the three shocking forces. The small force of distortion, even within this twisted land, can entangle Jia Yan and even restrict his freedom. But against the attacks of three powerful God Emperors, this force seems a bit insignificant. The entire twisted land was bombarded by the three forces, and there was shaking and endless distortion, but at this moment, it completely exploded. Jia Yan never thought that one day he would be unconsciously saved by the twisted place in this space. But when he came back to his senses, he understood after feeling the power of the twisting cracks behind him that were fighting against the powerful fluctuations of the fighting power of the three God Emperors. This twisted power actually makes Jia Yan feel like he is his companion now. Of course, there is no such thing as companionship, but just like water merging with each other, because Jia Yan has the talent of subspace, this is the case in this twisted land, with a piece of twisted power. To put it bluntly, it's the subspace itself, just a little out of balance. If Jia Yan enters this twisted land alone, he will be captured unconsciously. But when it comes to the outside world, there are things that are completely different from the subspace that enter. They are like burning oil touching water, and they directly explode up against each other. This is the principle of nature. The two sides became entangled with each other. Jia Yan had been injured a little, but at this moment, his brain was still functioning well. Take advantage of this opportunity and run away. Jia Yan suddenly looked behind him, knowing that there was a gap in strength between the two forces entangled behind him. This twisted power could not stop the fighting strength of the three God Emperors. Although the twisted land faced Jia Yan and could easily restrain him, possibly even to death, it was a bit weak against three people with energy exceeding the mid-level of a star. Therefore, it is bound to fail. This has nothing to do with whether it is strong or not, but the power of this twisted land. In terms of energy level, it is not as good as the level of the trump card of the three God Emperors. Jia Yan knew the result, so he immediately got out of this area and fled far away. But just when Jia Yan suddenly used his strength and wanted to escape, suddenly, this twisted land was completely shattered by the violent attack of the three powerful men. You must know that the distortion of a subdimensional land was condensed after an unknown number of years. It may even take hundreds of millions or even tens of billions of years to condense into what it is now. They condense because there is an imbalance in the subspace, otherwise they would not condense in this area. Because of their condensation, this subspace area will be stable. But now, the three God Emperors have actually blasted this area to the point where the distorted land no longer exists. Then the consequences will be very serious. A piece of subspace, completely out of balance. The distortion can be said to have appeared suddenly without Jia Yan even blinking. And when it appeared, it was a huge distortion that he had never seen before. What? It's such a shocking twisting power. Oh my God, this and this are instantaneous. With this level of power and this kind of terrifying distortion, wouldn't I be doomed? For Jia Yan, his own life always comes first, but now he finds that he has no helpers or any external forces to rely on. For an instant, Jia Yan felt that he might really die. The moment the terrifying power of distortion suddenly appeared, an astonishing force suddenly appeared in this twisted place. The shocking power completely disrupted the subspace. The three remaining powers of the God Emperor were blown away in an instant by this shocking twisting power, as if they did not exist. Even this twisted power came towards Jia Yan to swallow it. What is this? Run away, run away. Jia Yan saw the scene and ran away quickly. Even if he didn't know what was going on, Jia Yan still knew that it was extremely dangerous to deal with this terrifying twisting power. Even the three powers of the God Emperor that he could not stop were easily blown away by this twisted and terrifying power. It can be seen that for him, this is another level of power. Even at this moment, Jia Yan remembered the huge creature he had seen in subspace in the stellar battlefield. But the current feeling is that the terrifying level of power actually exceeds that terrifying behemoth, and it seems to be much more. Jia Yan is retreating, but the surroundings have completely collapsed and everything has turned into distortion. Is there any place to hide? So he was instantly enveloped by this shocking distortion, and even if he struggled hard, it was of no avail. What is this? Jia Yan felt deeply frightened, but at this moment, he only felt that the whole world was dizzy, and there was no room for struggle. He was completely swallowed up by this distortion. Not even a trace of its existence was left. Subspace has always been a restricted area for various creatures. There are too many dangers and unknowns here. Just like most rumors from others, there should be no living things in subspace, because living things cannot and should not exist in that environment. But Jia Yan had seen that huge dragon-like creature before, and it lived well in the subspace. There is also such a distortion, because the small distorted place was destroyed, such a terrifying big distortion unexpectedly appeared. No one knows what this principle is, but Jia Yan became the leader of such a strange scene in the world. Victim. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 1478. Just when Jia Yan was distorted and completely swallowed by the subspace, he was outside the subspace. Because the distance was too far, none of the three divine emperor-level beings could sense the 6 or 7 degree depth. But they could vaguely detect that in the distant 67th degree of subspace, after their attacks were defused, a breath of life dissipated in an instant. Humph, he's probably dead. It's so powerful even when it's dead. It was able to neutralize so much of our attack power before it died. It can be considered a legendary creature. Fortunately, he is dead. If this guy is still alive, I am really worried about whether he will be a crisis person in our spiritual domain in the future. Forget it, since he is dead, let's go and leave him alone. If we spread the news about the death of this evolved beast, someone will surely come and reward us. But please don't reveal everyone's trump card, otherwise we will become enemies. Haha, don't worry, since we have been comrades for a while, we will naturally not do such a thing. The three god emperors were here where they thought they had killed Jia Yan. After talking for a while, they flew away separately. When they left, they did not pursue the fleeing group of Jia Yan's subordinates. Because the Edisha was already operating at a high speed, it cost a huge amount of money to let a group of Jia Yan's subordinates directly enter it, and then it exploded with another wave of energy shock and flew into the subspace. Although it has not left, it already has the ejection ability to leave. Therefore, the three god emperors did not pursue them. Anyway, to them, the existence of such a few weak Jia Yan team who escaped did not pose any threat at all. They only focus on Jia Yan. And this one, although it has already escaped into the subspace. But Jia Yan has not returned, and the Edisha will not really escape. The three god emperors left, but no one said they wanted to escape from this area. Even if they stayed here, it was still risky. However, no one in Jia Yan's team said they wanted to escape. Because Jia Yan, the leader of the team and their current backbone, has not returned. If this backbone does not return, they will definitely not leave. None of you should say that Your Excellency may be dead. I firmly believe that Your Excellency will not die. That's right, What happened to the three god emperors? Sir, he has experienced so many battles. Which time has he not created a miracle? Even if there are three god emperors coming this time, there is absolutely no way he will die. Several subordinates had no doubts about Jia Yan's life and death, and all believed that he was alive. Maybe they still don't understand the evolved beasts, nor the talent and survivability of this race, but they just have to agree with Jia Yan's strength, survivability, and even ability. Jia Yan has too many backups. Now he is still a mid-level star who has been promoted. With such strength, when the three god emperors attack, they all think that even if Jia Yan has a certain amount of difficulty, there will definitely be no life. Danger. Perhaps Jia Yan didn't know that he had already formed an invincible image in the eyes of a group of subordinates. So, is he dead or not? There was a gloomy and dull feeling in the world. In the universe, there is positive and negative, or dark matter and positive matter. The existence of these two substances is completely meaningless to ordinary creatures, because even if you think of ordinary dark matter, it is difficult to use them. But under unique circumstances, dark matter can appear. Especially in some special places, there is a lot of dark matter. For example, in subspace. Jia Yan had known about the existence of dark matter for a long time, but what he didn't expect at all was that he would actually encounter dark matter in subspace. This kind of encounter happened in that twisted place. What exactly causes the distortion in subspace? Perhaps space has the possibility of distortion, resulting in the existence of subspace. Perhaps dark matter exists in subspace, so subspace exists. No matter what the reason is, subspace exists everywhere in the entire universe, at least everywhere that Jia Yan knows. What he didn't know was that in this space, there was actually a huge amount of dark matter with unimaginable energy. Just as scientists have guessed, dark matter may be the bulk of the energy in the universe. The matter we can see only accounts for a very small part, so dark matter may appear anywhere in the universe. The same is true in subspace. In the central area of the twisted land, there is a group of dark matter with exaggerated energy. This dark matter exists in subspace, and is mixed with the distortion. But Jia Yan was swallowed by this dark matter, but he still just opened a gap, as if nothing happened, and closed it directly again. This is the whole process of Jia Yan's disappearance. Although incredible, it is also full of the unknown and mystery of the universe. As for Jia Yan entering the dark matter in subspace, where did he go? This is even more ridiculous. The subspace is a weird space. It is different from ordinary space and different from normal energy. In short, it is very mysterious. But in the subspace, there is a more mysterious dark matter. These two kinds of matter actually exist at the same time, and even mix together to swallow Jia Yan. Under the influence of such two phases, Jia Yan's body actually opened some kind of magical passage by that force and fell directly into it. What's going on? I was completely swallowed up by that twisted land. Jia Yan slowly woke up in a vague blur. He felt that his body had completely entered into some kind of chaotic feeling. Even at this moment, he felt that his body was completely different from his own. What the hell is going on? I feel really bad. Jia Yan wanted to check his status, but he was surprised to find that it was difficult to show his strength. And under such circumstances, Jia Yan suddenly noticed a bright light appearing in the space in front of him. Immediately afterwards, he was unable to resist at all, and was dragged directly into this place of light by this force. Everything feels so obviously arranged. It's a pity that with Jia Yan's current strength and the weirdness in that space, if anyone can arrange this encounter for Jia Yan, his strength is probably astonishing. Does he exist in this universe? No one is sure. After all, this involves the laws of this universe. After Jia Yan was pulled out by the bright light, he suddenly felt that his strength quickly returned to his body. Ha, as long as my strength still exists, then there is nothing to be afraid of, Haha. Jia Yan slowly stabilized his body, trying to quickly stop the feeling of falling. But just when he wanted to stabilize his body, a shocking sense of crisis suddenly filled his heart. Not good, Jia Yan exclaimed in his heart and quickly shrank back. At this moment, Jia Yan only felt a sudden force coming from his side. The owner of this power has an unknown huge body. From Jia Yan's perspective, it seems to be as huge as hundreds of kilometers. A few hundred kilometers away, that's at least galaxy level, or even higher. What creature is so terrifying? Jia Yan was almost out of his wits. When he avoided the blow and looked at the creature attacking him, he was suddenly stunned. What is it? Is it a bat? The ancient memory was remembered by Jia Yan again. Jia Yan remembers bats very clearly as an existence that almost killed him when he was young. At that time, Jia Yan was really afraid of seeing any bat-like creature. He even felt that if he saw such a creature, his life would definitely be in danger. But that was then, and now he has reached the size of a giant mosquito 4 to 5 kilometers long, and is still a life of the evolved beast family, but at this moment, he actually saw a feeling similar to that time, no better than that compared with the size of the bat at that time, compared with the larger creature. The bat didn't seem to expect that its fatal blow would actually fail to hit, so it turned back unwillingly and attacked Jia Yan again. What on earth is it? Why don't I feel any brainwave power in this creature? Jia Yan was extremely frightened. A majestic evolved beast was frightened by the scene in front of him and showed a hint of panic. In fact, it's not his fault for being panicked, because Jia Yan never thought that he could encounter such a huge creature. He had never even thought that there were such huge life forms in this universe. But the way this life form was composed made Jia Yan extremely surprised. Because he didn't feel that this creature was any different from ordinary creatures, and he didn't even notice that there was no trace of brainwave power in such a huge and terrifying creature. In Jia Yan's opinion, this is something that cannot be ignored. If it didn't have brainwave power, or similar power, then it would be impossible for it to reach such a huge, non-powerful system, and it would be completely impossible for it to grow to such a terrifying size naturally in Jia Yan's opinion. However, Jia Yan didn't have much time to observe. When he saw the huge bat, he turned his head in an instant, and the speed was completely proportional to the same level as the bats on the earth. But Jia Yan felt a little shocked under such an attack. Because whether it's the brainwave power or the terrifying strength revealed by this creature, it should be a very scary creature. But unfortunately, this creature does not have any brainwave power. Although its flying speed is fast, it is just as terrifying as a bat flying tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands times. In fact, for a strong person with subspace talent as far as I'm concerned, there's no feeling of pleasure at all. Jia Yan's heart trembled, and he wanted to take action and jump into the subspace. But he found that where he was, his ability to subspace was completely blocked. Why? You can't even open the subspace. What on earth is this place? Jia Yan was completely shocked. Then, he was bitten in front of him by the bat creature that came quickly to work. Azure Defense. Jia Yan didn't expect that even if this creature didn't have the brainwave power talent, it still had such terrifying speed and combat power. At this moment, he was bitten by it. No, it's not that it's too strong, it's that I feel weaker. It's also wrong, it's not that I've become weaker, but this place seems to be different from before. Fortunately, Jia Yan's Azure Defense can still be turned on. After turning it on instantly, there was only a click sound, and the sharp teeth bitten by the creature actually left a deep tooth mark on Jia Yan's Azure Defense. Jia Yan's relatively small body completely collapsed and flew out. Visible to the naked eye, the creature's teeth actually bleed. It can be seen that it bit Jia Yan, but it still caused huge damage to itself. Jia Yan took advantage of the collapse and Lian Man used his strength to escape quickly in the opposite direction. And when he was flying, he felt that using the power of his brainwaves to fly was not fast enough. When he flapped his wings, he magically gained a lot of speed. The bat creature behind did not follow. Jia Yan breathed a sigh of relief, and then he had time to look at the place he came to. But without eyes, Jia Yan was stunned. Then, an expression of disbelief and disbelief suddenly emerged from his expression. How can it be? This, where is this? Oh my God, is this a tree? How could there be such a terrifying giant tree? It's not right. The grass around it is so big. Me, what kind of place have I got? Jia Yan really couldn't believe that he had actually arrived in a world where everything was extremely huge. Even him in it felt like a small mosquito in a huge world. This shocked him too much. You must know that he should have reached the size of a 5-kilometer giant mosquito now. But here, I feel like a little mosquito again. I don't believe it. This must be a dream. How could such a shocking place exist in the universe? Also, if you look at the proportions, the creature that bit me just now should be the bat here? Haha, could it be that I have grown to such a huge size and am a mid-level star creature, and I still need to be attacked by a bat? Threaten. Jia Yan was completely unable to accept that his body had turned into a creature the size of a mere mosquito at this moment. Of course, the mosquitoes mentioned here should be relative to this world. Jia Yan has no idea where this world is, nor why he is here. All he could think of was shock. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 1479. Jia Yan didn't know what happened. All he knew was that he had suddenly experienced a sudden change from being a top powerhouse who dominated the universe, and had come to this unknown place and became a mosquito-sized creature. This is too deceptive and too fake. No, my body feels the same as before. I haven't traveled through time or done anything else. It's just that in this world, my huge body is like a small body. I feel like a small mosquito. Generally. So, it's not me that has changed, but the world around me. Is that too weird? Jia Yan felt his body and found that there was no change. It was just that his strength was difficult to use here, and even his brainwave power almost suppressed the situation inside his body. The subspace cannot be opened, and the effect of brainwave power is not great, and all the surrounding creatures are like the behemoths that the little mosquitoes faced before, and the situation is no different from that time. Where is this place? Why do I always feel weird? Jia Yan began to fly slowly in this area. Around him, there are often one or two creatures of the same size flying by. These creatures look like the insects that the Earth once had. This scene made Jia Yan feel that he had traveled to a world similar to the Earth. But this idea was completely destroyed after Jia Yan saw other animals he had never seen before. It was a small human-like creature with green skin, constantly bouncing on the leaves. It seems that he cannot fly, but his speed and strength are extremely explosive. He can even jump to very high places in this very unique world in one leap. It probably didn't hurt me much, but it was still serious. Jia Yan looked at the jumping man over there and made up his mind not to provoke him. Of course, Jia Yan now feels that he cannot provoke any creature. Even if he is confident in his azure defense, the bat-like creature just now is definitely not the strongest creature here. Even it almost bit through his azure defense. Jia Yan doesn't think that his azure defense he is invincible in this strange place. Jia Yan was slowly thinking about how he got here and how he should get out of trouble. A sharp whistle rushed towards him in the sky again. Want to attack me? Even though Jia Yan's strength was greatly restricted, his fighting consciousness was still the same as before. It was almost impossible to sneak attack him with ordinary attacks. So at this moment, he felt the sneak attack and stepped back to avoid the attack. It turned out that what was attacking was a huge creature that looked like a scarab beetle. Of course, this is huge for the current Jia Yan. In short, he is about the same size as Jia Yan, so he is huge. But what surprised Jia Yan was that on top of this giant beetle-like creature was a plump human woman who looked just like a normal human being. However, if you put her height to the outside world, it would be at the kilometer level. She was riding on a giant scarab beetle, like a mount, and she was wearing a robe that looked like an ancient oriental person, but her hair was green, which looked like a strange combination. Unlike the little green man Jia Yan saw running on the ground just now, this woman actually has yellow skin similar to that of people on Earth. She had a firearm in her hand, but it was not a firing firearm, but an ordinary spear, a cold weapon. Seeing that Jia Yan was able to dodge her attack, the woman trembled slightly for an instant. Then, regardless of it, she raised her spear again and kicked her foot. The huge scarab turned its direction again and shot towards Jia Yan. Come suddenly. You're still here? I haven't even figured out what's going on, yet you're here to pester me. Jia Yan knows that if his strength is really fully unleashed, it will definitely be enough to deal with the crisis at hand. After all, as a stellar-level evolutionary beast, he still has this confidence. But what next? He didn't know if there was a race behind this female creature, or how huge her race was. After provoking others and forcing their race out, how would Jia Yan end up? Before he understood the world, he was unwilling to cause so much trouble directly. ####at asterisk. The woman in front of him shouted out a string of words that Jia Yan couldn't understand. It looked like he wanted to communicate with Jia Yan, but Jia Yan couldn't understand. He thought about it, and then tried his best to use his strength to let the sound waves of brainwave power pass through the air of this world. This kind of strength is still very different from Jia Yan's normal sense of strength. After all, he has never heard that it takes so much strength to make a sound. For Jia Yan, he wanted to try to see if he could make a good sound in this world. Fortunately, this attempt was successful. In this world, there is also air, or something similar to air. In short, Jia Yan felt that this kind of air could give his body a different kind of emotion, like the feeling of being able to advance quickly. Hello. Jia Yan's language is very simple, especially the modality, which seems to be a very ancient way of brainwave communication. This is the brainwave power communication method that Jia Yan obtained by a certain opportunity before. For Jia Yan, this method is generally not useful, because in the outside universe, similar communication methods have no effect at all. In the outside world, there is a universal language, or in the outside world, the places you go to are at least places where you can communicate in the lingua franca of the universe. Even if he can't communicate with ordinary creatures, he can still find some strong people in the outside world. The strong people can't even understand the common language, right? Therefore, Jia Yan's brainwave power method of communication is completely useless. I didn't expect it to be used here. The woman was completely stunned when she heard the sound that came directly to her ears, because she had never heard anything like it before. And this voice actually sounded like it could make her understand what it meant? This is amazing. She tried to continue talking to Jia Yan, but Jia Yan couldn't understand what she said. Rolling her eyes, the woman originally planned to capture Jia Yan as her prey today, but from the attack just now, she realized that the creature in front of her might be some kind of intelligent creature, so she asked questions verbally. But she didn't expect that the other party couldn't understand the language spoken near the forest, and he also used a contact method that she didn't have before. So when she discovered that she was the only one who could understand the language of this flying creature, she was helpless. She pointed in a direction and asked Jia Yan to leave. She definitely doesn't think there is such a race in this forest. If the other party wants to survive here, it will definitely not work, because the race here will eat this creature alive that they don't even understand the language. Although the communication skills he used were more interesting than she imagined, she didn't want to have anything. There wasn't so much fuss here. Maybe this ability was considered a good ability, but she couldn't imagine where she would use it. Of course, the most important point is that the strength of this creature is still quite strong, otherwise she would never deal with it in this way. Unexpectedly, this female creature was about to leave on a huge scarab-like creature. The creature with the slender mouthpart next to her flew directly in front of her. At this moment, her expression changed. How shameless! After his expression changed slightly, he became completely cold towards the mouth-parted creature in front of him. It seems that if they disagree, they will take action. Unexpectedly, when she was about to take action, the mouth creature opposite her used the same brainwave power communication method just now on her. Jia Yan's method of communication is used in the heads of intelligent creatures to allow them to understand what they want to say instantly. So at this moment, after Jia Yan used it in an instant, this female creature knew what Jia Yan wanted to say. "You actually asked me, where is this place?" She was amazed. Because she always thought that Jia Yan was a being further away in this forest. In her opinion, the forest she was in was so big that she didn't even know what the outside world was like except for this forest. She had also heard that there would be prosperity in the outside world, but she still didn't understand what the so-called prosperity would be. And this creature, she had been identifying it just now, was the creature in the forest. Even if it was far away, it would never be too far away. But now she finally heard that this creature actually came from a farther place. "Have you been to further places?" she asked with bright eyes. Of course Jia Yan couldn't understand her words. But this did not prevent this female-looking creature from being very curious about Jia Yan. "Come on, come to my house as a guest, but our tribe will be hostile to outsiders, so you have to be careful." Jia Yan followed this female human-like creature and moved forward. But they were also in this area and needed to be careful. Jia Yan even saw the bat that had just attacked him flying towards him, and the woman also had to control the scarab creature to avoid it. This shows that this human-like creature is not very strong. Of course, Jia Yan seems to feel that he is not strong in this area. During the journey, this female-like creature kept talking to Jia Yan. She may have thought that Jia Yan couldn't understand, and said what he said just for her own convenience, or even to embolden herself. After all, she would definitely be punished for bringing a foreign race into the clan's territory. But this female-like creature must have never expected that Jia Yan would quickly analyze her voice while she was speaking. Then quickly sort out these languages and learn them. She always uses this word when expressing herself, and it seems she is talking about herself, so it is the word I. This word is what she keeps repeating when talking about a certain item. "I will analyze it carefully. This should be your word." Jia Yan rushed forward, learning the language of the place along the way. After all, he is unfamiliar with the place and is completely blind to this place. Therefore, if he cannot quickly integrate into this place and quickly master the method of communication, he will definitely be in danger in the future. After all, there are too many dangers here. Haha, that's where I fell last time. I can't ride Camisa well, but everyone else can ride it very well. Wu Pila laughed loudly and pointed at a place, as if she was remembering some joke in her memory. The creatures living here have too few ways to entertain themselves. Like the time she almost fell off a scarab-like creature last time, it has been passed down by the entire race for a long time, and it is treated as an after-dinner joke that makes people laugh. But Wu Pila also knew that the creature behind her could not understand her words. "Hey, Wu Pila, is this your prey today? It looks so special. And if you haven't caught it, don't let it go." When passing a male-looking creature that looked like an earthling but was a few kilometers away, the male asked Wu Pila this question. His eyes were completely focused on Jia Yan behind Wu Pila. This creature, which seemed to have a mouth needle, actually flew past his eyes, which made him feel deeply unhappy. Because he has never heard of this kind of creature, there is absolutely no intelligent creature. So it's prey? But no matter how he looked at it, the creature was not tied to the rope of Upeli. No, this is a guest from our tribe. I invited him to come and play. Huh, guest. His strength seems to be average. Hey, he doesn't seem to be able to understand my words. The male creature, seeing Jia Yan's expression, could instantly tell that Jia Yan didn't seem to understand his words, which made the male creature feel a little curious. Yes, he comes from a more distant place. I want to invite him to my house and let him tell me about things far away. Oh, no, he doesn't speak our language, but it's okay. I can listen to what he says. Just understand. Wupila said happily. To her, there was nothing worth hiding. Huh? This creature is actually not a creature of our forest. The man-like figure suddenly froze after hearing Wupila's words. There was a sparkle in his eyes. Because he also longed to be able to get out of this forest one day. He had only heard the words of the older generation in the forest about the prosperity of the outside world. At that time, he felt that he should get out of this forest, so that he could ensure that he would stand out. Or the wish to see the prosperity of the outside world can be realized. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 1480. In this tribal land, a creature that seemed to understand the outside world came. Although the man didn't think that this seemingly unknown creature would look like he had stayed in a prosperous place, he still felt a little excited. If he could ask anything, he could be of great help for future trips. I'll go with you too. This guy might be in danger, and I can protect you. The man said this, but there was no trace of worry in his eyes. Jia Yan looked at the two human-like creatures in the conversation. According to outside standards, their bodies are more than 1 kilometer high. If placed on the earth, they can be said to be giants comparable to buildings. But in this weird place, they are smaller than the scarab-like creature just now. There are even terrifying bat creatures flying hundreds of kilometers outside. In addition, Jia Yan's brainwave power cannot be separated from the body, and his body's strength and subspace talent cannot be used. This is simply amazing. But Jia Yan, through his own sense of power, was deeply aware that the humanoid creatures around him, or the weak creatures here, each had their own power. It's just that these powers seem to be hidden in their bodies, and they can't use them. They are even used to this feeling. In other words, even if they reach the outside world, they will still be extremely terrifying masters, but they may not understand how to use such powerful power. But here, their method of using power is correct. Even Jia Yan's use of power is not as powerful as theirs. The system is different, and even the method of using power is different. This is a matter of course. What are these two people talking about? I don't understand, but the sense of power in their bodies is very powerful, but it is only about the first level of a star. Now it seems that I may not be able to beat one of them, but this is the reason is that I haven't become familiar with this world yet. As long as I become familiar with it, I might be able to crush them easily. Jia Yan knows that his strength and powerful methods are not something that ordinary creatures can understand. Even if he adapts to this world and develops his own yin and yang system or how to use certain high-level powers from the outside world, he might be able to defeat some of the stronger creatures here. But facing that bat, Jia Yan himself had been thinking about it for a long time and didn't know when he would be able to defeat him. Even though Jia Yan had just broken the bat's teeth and made them bleed, it was because it was unprepared. In fact, Jia Yan felt that if it was given a certain amount of preparation time or fought with all its strength, the bat creature would probably be, it is stronger than the average god emperor. But in fact it is impossible to compare like this, the systems on both sides are different. The two characters, while chatting, came to Jia Yan and led him to a place like a house. This is the first time Jia Yan has come to a decent house since he became stronger. Because in the outside world, his body is huge. Except for spaceships made with unique technology, or other places of residence, it is rare for Jia Yan to see ordinary residences. But here, he saw such an ordinary residence, it even looked like a room decorated by a girl. After Wu Pila came to the house, she relaxed like a little girl. This house was made using the tree hole of a certain tree, because compared to Wu Pila and Jia Yan, the trees in this world are like small dots. Even to Jia Yan, some huge trees are just like small dots. It's as big as a planet in the outside world, so a house in a tree hole is very big. Okay, tell me what the place outside is like. When Wu Pila said such a series of words, Jia Yan didn't seem to understand very much and remained silent for a while. She and the man on her side looked anxious and were talking to Jia Yan along the way. Jia Yan was still like a puppet, staring blankly at the two people talking. Hey, this guy probably doesn't understand our words. I hope he will be able to understand us after a while. There is no other way. I just don't know how much food is needed to raise him, otherwise I can't afford it. Wu Pila sighed bitterly. Well, I actually want to ask him about the outside world. I'll also provide some of the food when the time comes. The man next to Wu Pila said this solemnly. Really? Thanks. Wu Pila's eyes lit up and she nodded to the young man beside her. What they didn't notice was that when they were talking, the mosquito-like creature that had never spoken stood beside them, just waiting and listening to their words. Slowly, Jia Yan, who was beside them, gradually mastered and learned the language of this race through the words of these two people and the frequency of the words appearing before. Hello. When the two of them were talking about the beautiful things in the outside world, they suddenly heard that the insect creature that was standing next to them for a long time and was larger than their bodies suddenly began to speak. Hey, you can actually talk. How could it be? Have you been lying to us just now? The two people were startled, especially the young man-like creature, which almost jumped up and wanted to fight Jia Yan. But Jia Yan had no intention of fighting them. Because through the time when he was learning language just now, he had already observed that these two alien creatures had no intention of harming him. I didn't lie to you, I was just learning your way of speaking. I'm sorry, I overheard some of your words. Jia Yan said lightly. Listen to us, you can actually talk like this, and it's only been so long. Some of what you are saying now, we didn't say at all just now, okay? Wu Pila said in surprise. If I know how to do it, I've calculated it, but I don't know if I'm wrong. Jia Yan's indifferent words made the two young creatures on the side stunned. You must know that among their species, the most genius, or the most legendary creature cannot reach such a level. But this Jia Yan actually achieved it like this, and not just achieved it in general, but after learning their words, he also deduced other words. This is too outrageous. In fact, for Jia Yan, this ability is not so unbelievable, because he is now a creature that has reached the intermediate level of Hui Xing with such strength. Everyone has a good memory. In addition, he has learned several languages, and after reaching a powerful expert level, he is even more confident that he can easily learn new languages. I didn't expect this skill to be used in such a situation, and it even worked well. Luji, I think he really doesn't understand the language here, and he still can't speak well now. Wu Pila's face was full of shock. Be careful, this guy's fighting ability is definitely good, don't fall into his trap. The man's name turned out to be Luji. He was originally full of doubts about Jia Yan. After all, he was also a person who wanted to go out to the outside world. For him, what needed to be cultivated was to be suspicious of others. Moreover, Jia Yan's existence is indeed too weird. Even if he was picked up just now, he actually didn't understand what they were saying, and he understood it instantly. No matter who sees this, they will be wary. The two of them said something to each other, and I said something in one sentence. Jia Yan was only initially exposed to this language, so when they spoke fast, he was a little too busy to understand what was being said, and half understood. Fortunately, he slowly came to understand that it was two humanoid creatures who were doubting his identity. He added the words of the language he had just absorbed to his vocabulary again, and then spoke slowly. You two, I did come from a very far away place, but it's still different from the place you imagined. Jia Yan's words made the two human-looking creatures shocked by his words. What does it mean to be somewhere different from what we imagined? Aren't you from the outside world? No, I did come from the other side, but it's a little different from the outside world you imagine. Jia Yan continued to explain, but when he was about to say that he came from an outside universe, his words suddenly stopped. Because he didn't know how powerful the people in this place were, and it was impossible for these two guys to keep it a secret for him, so why not tell them? God knows what it would be like to face outsiders in a place like this. Even Jia Yan couldn't figure out what kind of place this could be. So he changed his tune temporarily. The place I am in is a bit more remote than the outside world of the forest as you think. Jia Yan's words made the two people's eyes light up slightly. You said you came from a place further than the forest. Tell me, there is something there. Don't lie to me. If you lie to me, I will definitely cause trouble for you. The two of you said one word, and I said the same thing. Especially the creature that looked like a young man almost used threatening words towards Jia Yan. Even though Jia Yan hadn't learned so many words yet, he quickly understood what he meant. After all, this guy's expression was very similar to that of an earthling. Earthlings usually behave very much like this man when threatening others. Oh, I don't have to lie to you. If you don't want to believe me, I'll leave now. Jia Yan looked like he was about to leave. Anyway, he had learned the general language here. If he went out and found any intelligent creature, he would be able to understand the general situation here. Don't go. I believe what you said. You come from a very far away place, right? Can you see our forest from your place? The young man was actually more anxious than Wu Pile, and he quickly stopped Jia Yan and asked. Do you believe me now? Well, I'll also ask you some questions, so we can exchange them. Jia Yan said lightly, if someone doesn't know, he will at least understand a little bit about this world, otherwise how could he be so calm? But in fact, he doesn't know any knowledge about this world. The current situation is just that things have progressed to this point, and he regards the two of them as necessary knowledge acquisition points. It's okay for him to leave, but this also shows that there will be more people who know that he knows almost nothing when he comes here. It would be better to make good use of these two. Judging from their stupid appearance, it seems that it is not difficult to justify themselves. Okay, you answer the question I just asked, and I will answer you. In our forest, no, in our clan, there is nothing that I don't know about. The young man's attitude changed drastically, and he spoke extremely respectfully to Jia Yan. Their conversation now feels normal. After Jia Yan learned a little more of their vocabulary, he basically mastered the language of this race. Okay, let me tell you first. You can't see your forest from where I am, and it's completely different from yours. Jia Yan said this seemingly truthfully. Wow, it's completely different from ours. Are you from the city? My God, it is said that the only elder in our race has been to the city, and his knowledge is amazing. Wu Pile was standing aside, admiring Jia Yan's words so much. Because the city is her ideal place for adventure. Unfortunately, after the great elder returned here, he told the young people in the clan that it was impossible to go to the outside world without reaching the next level of strength. They don't understand how powerful the next level of strength is. They only know that it is extremely difficult to go to the outside world. Even if the great elder has reached the next level of strength when he goes out, He still has to go through countless hardships. And finally arrived at the big city. City. Jia Yan was slightly startled. So there is a city in this place? If he can't get the information he wants in this forest, then he can go to those big cities. However, Jia Yan is not sure how strong the creatures in the outside world are. His goal is not to get anything here, he just wants to know how to get back to his original place. Even at this moment, he didn't know whether he had traveled through time or arrived at a unique place. But this is too exaggerated. He even suppressed his power. Even everything here was so huge that Jia Yan thought he had shrunk. But the feeling of his body told him that his body had not become smaller. It was just that after arriving at this place, he became a real mosquito in countless huge environments. That's right, we have a city there, but it's not even one. Compared to your forest, the individuals there may be weak, but they are very developed. There are not only houses, but one can be repaired every once in a while. Wow, that's amazing. Are the houses in the city so powerful? It takes a while to build one. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 1481. The two so-called foreign young people were shocked by Jia Yan's words. Of course they didn't know that the houses in Jiayankao were not what they imagined at all, and even the size was not so small that they could easily live in it. Because Jia Yan was talking about the universe he came from, where there were too many houses and cities to count. Oh, I really hope to be able to go to the outside world one day. Yes, but you actually learned our language so quickly. It's amazing. The two young men expressed their extreme shock at how quickly Jia Yan could learn their language. Because it is difficult for them to learn a language. But what they don't know is that strong people who are proficient in the power of brain waves can quickly understand other people's intentions by comparing their brainwave powers. This makes learning languages much easier. Now that he has learned the language here, Jia Long wants to ask carefully what kind of world this is. In just a short period of communication, he was able to easily speak out more complex conversation patterns. What kind of forest is this? When I first entered, I just kept my head down and flew, and I didn't feel where this place was. Jia Yan asked. So you don't even know where you are? And our forest is so huge, you actually flew to us in one breath, and you don't even know where we are. The man who looked like a young man was extremely shocked by Jia Yan's words. Because in his opinion, this is completely impossible. But when his eyes fell on the pair of wings behind Jia Yan's back, he suddenly realized something. So you have wings. Alas, it's good for strong people like you to be able to run around with such weak strength. For people like us, we have to wait until our strength reaches a certain level. Running around. As he spoke, Jia Yan clearly felt that the other woman was also extremely envious of his wings. Jia Yan knew now that his wings, which had always been a decoration, were now the envy of others. As someone asked, our forest is called Zihao Forest. As for how big it is, we don't know. We only know that many people in this forest want to go out, but only a few people actually go out. A stronger person. Zihao Forest. After Jia Yan thought for a while, he nodded. Thank you for your answers. I wonder if, in addition to roads to other cities or regions, there are, well, roads to other places. Jia Yan was thinking that since his subspace talent could no longer be used, it meant that it was almost impossible to leave this place. If you can't leave by your own strength, then you must see if there are any weird events here, and then go investigate to see if there is a way to the outside world. Jia Yan knew that he must have arrived in some strange place. This place did not look like a normal universe. Because he doesn't even have a basic sense of familiarity with the universe, as if this place is completely different from the normal universe. But there should be a way to leave this place. After all, he can enter this place, so there must be a way to leave here. Aside from knowing that this is Zihao Forest, we don't know much about the location. However, we do know the forces of the surrounding races relatively well. The two of them were relatively friendly to Jiayan. After all, they lived in the forest and there were not so many intrigues and deceptions. Of course, as creatures that can survive in the forest, they still have their own ways of protecting themselves. Especially after seeing Jiayan's strength, they also know that this creature from the outside also has certain strength. However, these two people did not feel that Jiayanhui would be a threat to them if they joined forces. But now among their race, they are surrounded by tribesmen who are as powerful as them, or even more powerful. So what can this creature do no matter how powerful it is? I see, you are Zihao Forest, I know. Jiayan responded calmly. Do you know our Zihao Forest? Haha, I said, our Zihao Forest is so big, but what the elder said is that our place is just a small forest, and the outside world doesn't know the situation here at all. The young man named Lu Ji laughed and was extremely proud. Is this Zihao Forest actually a small forest? Jiayan was stunned for a moment. Although he had not yet understood how big the forest was, from the words spoken by the two young men, he knew that the forest should be quite big. So Jiayan felt that the forest should be quite big. That's right. After all, their strength is 2-star level creatures. How can the forest that they can't get out of for the rest of their lives be actually an inconspicuous forest? This somewhat surprised him. Okay, thank you both for your answers. As for the things you want to know about the city, I can also answer you, but I don't know much about it. Jiayan looked careless. After all, as an outsider, he couldn't say too much. Otherwise, others would definitely be able to tell that he was not a creature of this place. For Jiayan, this is not a disaster. So he had no choice but to admit it. However, from the words of these two human-like creatures, it seems that the great elder of this race has been in the so-called outside world. He cannot say more here, especially not with the great elder. If you talk too much, you will definitely be noticed. Okay, two friends, since I can't be of much help to you, I'm leaving. Jiayan said this to the two young human beings. My friend, since you are a guest from afar, we must take good care of you. Why don't you stay with us for 2 days? Two young human-like creatures said this to Jiayan quickly. Seeing that Jiayan seemed to want to leave, the male young man, that is, the man named Zheng Luzi, rolled his eyes and said another sentence. It is said that in 2 days, our great elder will give an explanation of the Tao. Maybe you will also have the opportunity to observe it, don't you want to hear it? The words spoken by this Luzi man once again made Jiayan slightly stunned. Road. Jiayan was extremely surprised, and then he felt that the words he had translated through brainwaves were a bit wrong. But after he slowly thought about it through the information he received in his head, he found that he understood it correctly. The general meaning of this Tao is actually somewhat similar to the Tao he understood on Earth. But the difference is that the Tao on Earth only exists in novels and fairy tales. And the Tao of this place, at least for now, should be a real thing. This made Jiayan a little stunned. What the hell, is there really such a thing in the universe? In the universe, shouldn't scientific brainwave power be the way to grow strength through evolution or mutation? Why does something like Tao appear? Jiayan was shocked, and what he didn't understand at all now was what that path was. He just remembered that when he was confronting two human-like young people just now, he felt a faint, similar to his brain wave. Power, different but somewhat similar power, is hidden in their bodies. Is this kind of power called Tao? It's strange. It's even stranger than I imagined. Jiayan felt a faint attraction to the state of energy and his strength. Especially this kind of power is in the bodies of two seemingly young creatures. They are not very strong, but they can have a slight attraction to Jiayan. What if it is placed in the body of a more powerful creature? Jia Yan felt that it was necessary for him to really see the great elder. Because he will definitely be a good strong man. In addition to hearing what Tao he says, the more important thing is to know what kind of strength this strong man is. This place must be powerful, because the young people you meet casually have such terrifying strength, and that bat, which looks like an ordinary creature, actually has such terrifying strength. It is probably still if there are more terrifying creatures or powerful people, then I will first see what kind of great elder has the strength to walk out of the forest, so that I can compare myself. Jia Yan thought about this for a moment, then turned to look at the two creatures standing in front of him. Okay, I'll stay with you for a day or two, but I really don't have anything to say to you. After all, I don't have much status in that city, so it's useless for you to ask me. Okay, then you can live with me, haha. Wu Pila nodded happily to Jia Yan. Then let me come in and hear what this brother's past is. Then Lu Ji also said this. But Wu Pila refused. You are a man. It doesn't matter if you live in the house of a girl like me. If word gets out, my reputation will be ruined. Wu Pila's expression changed, and she raised her foot and kicked Lu Ji. When Jia Yan saw this scene, he actually wanted to say that he was also a man, but looking at his current body and even his sexual characteristics, they were completely gone, so he had no choice but to sigh without any explanation. As expected, Wu Pila wanted to ask Jia Yan something. There is not much that Jia Yan doesn't want to say. Of course, what he says is based on some big cities in the outside world and combined with some insights from this world. For example, in science, he won't go into that much detail. Brought directly. But just like this, hearing about a house with dozens or even hundreds of floors, an iron box that can walk on the road, and an extremely advanced shopping mall, Wu Pila was so excited that she seemed to want to escape right away. Go outside and see what the outside world is like. While she was listening to Jia Yan's words, Jia Yan was also making insinuations, slowly learning about the world. Yes, it is the world. In Jia Yan's opinion, the world is too big. He even judged from Wu Pila's words that the Zihao forest they were in was completely boundless. If he looked at the proportions of his body in the universe, it reaches hundreds of millions of kilometers. You must know that this is hundreds of millions of kilometers. Even if Jia Yan uses his subspace talent, it will take a long time to fly. But here, Jia Yan cannot use his subspace talent. If he really wants to fly, it will take longer. There is also a teleportation array? Oh my god, what kind of world is this? Jia Yan was stunned again when he heard Wu Pila's words. Because he wanted to ask how people in this world traveled long distances, she actually immediately replied, what kind of teleportation array they used. And even the nearest teleportation formation is extremely far away from this race. According to Wu Pila, it would take about a year to get there. When it comes to the teleportation array, you may not be able to leave the Zihao forest quickly because the teleportation distance of a teleportation array is very short. When you reach another place, you have to teleport again, and then you can speaking of outside Zihao forest. If according to what they said before, Zihao forest is not very big in the outside world, then how big is this world? Jia Yan was shocked. For him, it was necessary to know how big the world was. He was thinking that if he had to, he would fly directly to the sky above his head. Because in his opinion, this world at least has a Sunday, although that sun looks a little weird. As long as there is a sun, then Jia Yan feels that there should be starry sky outside, and when it comes to the starry sky outside, I guess I can think of a way to see if there is a chance to return to the original place. Jia Yan has always thought that this world should not be a new place. Because Jia Yan doesn't want to believe that there are places in the universe that cannot be explained by science. But in fact, such heavy pressure has already made Jia Yan breathless. After all, he was in the subspace and was directly swallowed by the weird space, and came to this place. This means that this place is probably completely related to the subspace that swallowed him, so this place will still be the same as before. The great realm of gods. Or even, could this be the original universe? Jia Yan can't even guarantee this. Because he vaguely felt that some of the laws here were different from those in the outside world. Otherwise, there would not be such a terrifying world with huge animals and plants, or even such powerful people. No matter what, let's see if there is a way to listen to the great elder's Tao speech. If you can hear it, you might know the nature of certain things in this world. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 1482. Of course, what Jia Yan thinks about most is not Tao, but he wants to know if there is a way for Tao to make him stronger. What Jia Yan wants to do in the universe is to make himself stronger. After all, besides his family, the thing he wants to do most is to become strong. If he could become stronger, or if he could become a galaxy-level being now, then even if he had to give up his subordinates in the outside world and give up the Edisha, what would be the point? Of course, family is another issue. Spent one night in Upeli's house. Jia Yan felt strange that day and night still existed in this place. Even though the time might not be exactly the same as the 24 hours on Earth, it was almost the same. For such a big planet, it can actually have a similar amount of time. Doesn't this violate the laws of physics? Jia Yan has been thinking about what the principle of this world is, but now he is confused again. Because after he knew that this planet or world was extremely huge, he thought that this was a huge planet, and it might even be countless times bigger than the two extremely huge mysterious planets he had been to before. But now it seems that this is a bit wrong. Because if this planet is very large, then its rotation speed cannot be as fast as the Earth's. Then the surface of the entire planet must be extremely unstable. But the Sun's time is similar to that of the Earth, which surprised Jia Yan. This shows that the rotation speed of this planet is still very fast. Jia Yan, what are you looking at? Are you homesick? While Jia Yan was thinking, a female voice sounded behind him. Jia Yan turned around and saw Wu Pila standing behind him, looking at Jia Yan curiously. Haha, yes, I miss home, but I don't know when I can go back home. Jia Yan said this after a period of silence. I get it. There must be someone at home you want to see. Then Wu Bila said such a sentence out of sheer wisdom. The person you want to meet. Jia Yan was actually slightly startled by these words. In fact, looking back, if he wanted to see his family now, he probably could still forcefully activate the clone, right? Do you really want to see me? Jia Yan smiled helplessly. However, this point also reminded him that if he used his clone, he might be able to contact his subordinates and family members in the outside world. But when Jia Yan just thought this and wanted to use his clone, his heart froze again. Because no matter how he activated it, there was no feeling of being a clone. This. Jia Yan was shocked. You must know that in the previous universe, he has always been able to control his clones relatively smoothly. Even if the distance reaches 10 or 20,000 light years, if he wants to activate his clone in his hometown, that is, on the Earth, he can do it. But now I can't activate the clone? This made Jia Yan's heart almost sink. His clone uses the theory of quantum entanglement. According to this theory, as long as he is in the same normal universe, he can activate his clone. But it can't be started at this time. This made Jia Yan extremely solemn, because the inability to activate it meant that an idea he had never thought of had come true. That is, Jia Yan has always felt that the laws here and the feeling of power around him are not that similar to the original universe. Could it be that he traveled to a parallel universe? Jia Yan was slightly surprised. After all, he had never thought that parallel universes really existed. But now it seems that apart from this explanation, there is really no other explanation. After all, he knew that, for him, in addition to the inexplicable clone, what was unexplainable was the disappearance of power, and the feeling of energy in the entire outside world was different. With such doubts, it would be better to use the rhetoric of another universe. It's only right to make Jia Yan feel accepted. Otherwise there is no other way to explain it. It's actually another universe. In other words, it's a different parallel space. Jia Yan thought a lot. These days passed quickly. Jia Yan has never gone out, that is, he is hiding in Wu Paila's house, waiting for the so-called Great Elder to explain what is going on. Finally, that day, Lu Ji rushed to Wu Paila's hut. It's begun, the Great Elder's Tao explanation has begun. Here we go. Jia Yan and Wu Paila were both delighted. Jia Yan was happy to finally hear the Great Elder's explanation, while Wu Paila was pleasantly surprised because she heard Jia Yan once said to her that he would leave this tribe after listening to the Great Elder's explanation. And when the time came, she decided to tag along. It's natural for Jia Yan to leave. After all, this is the place where he first appeared in this world. If he stays for a long time, he will be discovered one day, and then investigate into the state where he didn't understand anything when he first came here. The possibility of being exposed like that is too high. Anyway, he has already learned the language here, so if he leaves, he will have a certain degree of confusion. By then, others will probably not know that he is an outside creature. Even if they know, they will not think that he is from a place similar to this. The same place all over the world. So he doesn't plan to stay here any longer. He will leave after the Great Elder's explanation is finished. Let's go over and take a look. Jia Yan said to Wu Baila. Okay, let's go take a look. Jia Yan had no idea that this foreign woman actually planned to leave with him. Lu Ji on the other side seemed to have a similar feeling. He kept looking at Jia Yan, as if he was afraid that Jia Yan would escape. But Jia Yan will not escape. Even at this moment, he didn't fully understand that these two guys wanted to follow him. After all, no matter how he thought about it, he would never have thought that these two individuals of the humanoid race in the mountain forest wanted to leave the forest. The three of them left Wu Paila's room, left the huge tree hole, and walked towards another place nearby. That's right, he can walk. Although Jia Yan hasn't walked on 6 legs for a long time, he can still move around. As for flying, he had no idea about it, especially after hearing that the Great Elder seemed to have said that it was impossible to fly, so he gave up the idea completely. It is said that he is very strong, so Jia Yan feels that he cannot offend others. And after knowing that even such a powerful being could not fly, Jia Yan felt that there would be great potential for him to use his wings to fly. At least if he can't be beaten, he can still fly. Of course, it is said that there are many races that can fly, and there are also many powerful creatures in the sky. Strong people like this race must live cautiously in the forest, which makes Jia Yan not dare to fly around at will. The method used this time is to take the path of Taoism. Only those who can walk in front of the Great Elder can listen to his sermons. That Lu Ji said to Wu Paila behind him. Of course, he also said this to Jia Yan at the same time. What way? Jia Yan was stunned. It's not surprising that you don't know. This path is unique to our race. It was arranged by the Great Elder himself after he returned to our race. If you don't understand, you can feel it later. On the other hand, the Great Elder, when he gave the sermon this time, he laid out the path to the Dao. Is there anything unique about it? If it is a small and unique Dao, then we must go through the path to the Dao. It makes others look at you with admiration. Both Lu Ji and Wu Paila were very surprised by the appearance of the path. Because they all know that every time the Great Elder figures out the way to find the way, it is the same time he releases extremely important news about this sermon. There used to be a strong man of their race. After listening to an explanation of the path to the Tao, his strength exploded on the spot and reached the level of the great elder. Of course, the level is the same, but it is still far behind the great elder's strength. Great. But that is already something that makes the entire race happy. The two of them also thought that if they could get some breakthrough this time because of their journey, then their trip would be more logical and confident. Jia Yan listened to what the two people said, while frantically absorbing and understanding their information. The rhetoric of these two people contains too much news for Jia Yan to digest. In fact, these days, he has learned a lot about the world through the mouths of these two people. In particular, he understood a lot about the so-called cultivation knowledge of this world. For example, people in this world actually have to practice, and their practice is even more sophisticated than that of the creatures in Jia Yan's previous universe, and the energy they absorb seems to be a kind of inexplicable power. Something to explain. Genkai, oh my god, this shouldn't be a world of cultivation. Jia Yan has been complaining that although in the universe he was in before, every powerful person who wanted to reach a very high level also needed a lot of training, but it was completely different from the systematic training here. The so-called cultivation here even vaguely violates the principles of physics, and it is not uncommon to violate various basic scientific laws. This made Jia Yan completely understand that the world he was in now was completely a fantasy world. Since I have become so small in this world, and my strength is probably not that strong, let's go and see what the Tao of this world is and what the methods of cultivation are. Jia Yan is actually very open-minded. After all, he is very satisfied with his own strength and talent. This kind of thing can be tolerated in any world, and as long as he slowly improves his strength, even the strongest in this world will be very powerful. Jia Yan also feels that relying on his talent as an evolved beast, as well as his inherent strength and perseverance, he will definitely be able to make a name for himself here in the future. Even find the way back to the original universe faster. The road has arrived. Two huge male and female forest humans suddenly stopped when they came to a huge tree. And here, Jia Yan saw all kinds of strong humanoids coming and going around him, either on foot, or sitting on ants, or other insects. To be honest, Jia Yan felt that the humans in this world, that is, just like him, were about the same size as mosquitoes, maybe a little smaller than ordinary mosquitoes. Of course, Jia Yan himself wasn't that big, but looking at so many tiny humans, he couldn't help but complain. As for the giant tree they were in, if Jia Yan were to be compared to the size of a mosquito, then the diameter of this tree would be 10 meters thick. Of course, if Jia Yan's current body is 5 kilometers in diameter, then it is not wrong to say that this giant tree has a diameter of several thousand kilometers. This is almost as big as the Earth. Of course, Jia Yan is just a small mosquito in this world, so if you think about it this way, it is more acceptable. On this huge tree, there is a long rope bridge connected to a branch, which creates a natural road. This is the so-called path of Dao. As long as you set foot here, you must accept the test of the path of Dao. Looking for book garden, those who leave will be regarded as eliminated and will no longer be able to enter to listen to the great elder's explanation today. Na Luzi said so. Okay, let's go over and take a look. Presumably, this was not the first time for the two young people to participate in such a road test. They were familiar with it and quickly stepped onto the bridge. Jia Yan hesitated for a while and then stepped forward. As soon as he stepped on it, he felt a huge pressure, which was suddenly released from the bridge, or the giant tree in front of him. Jia Yan trembled slightly and stabilized his body. Hey, why do I feel that this pressure, the suppression on me, is not that great? Jia Yan felt that Wang was slightly surprised, because he was ready to let the power on the bridge cables press him until he was breathless. But now it seems that this power suppression is powerful, but it is not enough to make him feel a little unable to resist. Just as Jia Yan felt surprised. Somewhere in the giant tree, A creature that looked like a human but was probably not related to the old man slowly opened his eyes in surprise. That outsider couldn't even subdue him with the pressure I deployed at that time. It's strange. I feel that the Tao in him is not very powerful, but his strength is almost not afraid of me. So, who can he be? The old man with a gray beard, after being surprised, turned his attention to Jia Yan and observed it lightly. At the bottom, Jia Yan, who was slowly walking across the bridge, seemed to have some realization and raised his head slightly. Well. On top of the tree, Jia Yan caught sight of the old man with a gray beard, and his heart suddenly felt heavy. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 1483. Amazing. He was able to use his power to counter-suppress me from such a distance. This strength, even if it is not at the same level as mine, is not much different from mine. Could it be that he is here to visit me? A comrade. It seems that he is a very playful friend who actually went on this road with ordinary children of our race. Haha, you can play if you want. At worst, I will explain to my tribesmen later that it's just a senior who came from afar, otherwise those kids might not even have a mental breakdown. The white-haired old man glanced at the energy under his eyes, then quietly sat cross-legged and had no idea of welcoming the guests. In his opinion, this person should be a strong person in the game world. Of course, if his strength is similar to him, he can't be said to be more cool. But while the old man was thinking that the person coming would be a being with similar strength to him, Jia Yan below had no such idea. Because the brainwave power could not be used, he did not know the location of the elder at this moment. He didn't know that he was actually recognized by this magical great elder as being about the same strength as him. If Jia Yan knew about it, he would definitely feel a little surprised, because the great elder's strength can be said to be a mythical figure in this race. How could such a being regard his strength as the same as his own? If Jia Yan knew it, he would definitely see some of the strength characteristics of this world, but it's a pity that he doesn't know it yet. Of course, he would know next. Jia Yan, you are not a member of our race, and you are not qualified to enter the path of our race, but you are a guest of both of us. With our status and identity, it is more than enough to invite you, so you just go with come up. Wu Pilot and Lu Ji led the way ahead, especially when they were on the huge bridge. They communicated with a man guarding the bridge. So Jia Yan was not blocked and went directly onto the bridge made of tree vines. This bridge is amazing. Jia Yan looked up at the huge bridge, which made him feel a little scared. Not because of height or anything else, but because he could see that such a huge bridge required more man-hours and effort than others could imagine. In fact, Jia Yan is still looking at things according to the rules of the outside world. If he understands that this bridge is a small bridge made by a group of small creatures, he probably won't be so shocked. But of course, at this moment, Jia Yan was amazed at the bridge. In addition to the difficulty of making this craft and his admiration for the maker, another surge of pride arose. Since this bridge was called a bridge, it must have something unique about it, and he wanted to give it a try. The moment he stepped onto the bridge, Jia Yan felt a sudden shock. This time, it was not his body that was hit, but his heart. Huh? Why does there seem to be a faint force on this bridge that can affect my heart? Jia Yan was stunned and looked at Wu Pilot and Lu Ji around him, as well as the human-looking creatures further away. When they stepped onto the bridge one by one, they all felt similar to Jia Yan, and they all looked solemn. As expected, everyone has it. Is this the so-called Taoism or something like that? This kind of influence on the heart seems to be extremely powerful, and even Jia Yan doesn't know the principle behind it. But in fact, for Jia Yan, this kind of power is nothing to be afraid of. Because his heart has been the direction of his mutation and strengthening since not long after he was born. So at this moment, after this suppressive force made his heart tremble suddenly, it no longer had much impact. Jia Yan was not afraid at all and walked directly up. Really? The old man high in the sky looked at the scene calmly, not surprised at all. Because in his opinion, Jia Yan was on the same level as him, so this relatively small method would naturally not be able to hurt Jia Yan in the slightest. Of course, for this great elder, he is relatively confident in his own strength, because from his first glance, the crawling flying creature has not found him yet, which shows that the strength of both parties there is a little gap. In addition, he also believed that since he had a lot of combat experience, he would not be afraid of anything even if he faced creatures with the same power level. While the great elder was looking at the scene below, observing the outsider Jia Yan, he also observed the other tribesmen around him. Jia Yan slowly adapted to the power on the bridge. Is this the first level? Let me break through him. Jia Yan took steps, moving quickly with his 6 legs. Hey, Jia Yan is so fast. The 2 human men and women behind him were stunned almost instantly by Jia Yan's speed. For them, it was not like the great elder who regarded Jia Yan as a being more powerful than them, but for these few days, they regarded Jia Yan as a creature with similar strength to them. Because Jia Yan's external strength is so strong, and there was a brief fight scene between Wu Pilot and Jia Yan, if Jia Yan hadn't hit quickly, his head would probably be in a different place now. So Wu Pilot and Lu Ji both I thought that even if Jia Yan was stronger than them alone, his actual strength would not be as powerful as the 2 of them working together. But things were different now. Jia Yan actually ran so fast on this strange bridge, which was the first step on his clan's road, which surprised them all. Maybe there is something unique about Jia Yan's heart. Wu Pilot didn't know that her random guess of words was actually correct. At this time, the information in several aspects was a bit inconsistent. Jia Yan thought that the strong men in this world were very powerful, but the powerful elder actually thought that Jia Yan was of his level. As for Wu Pilot behind him, she believed that Jia Yan was as strong as her. Even if he was strong, he wouldn't be much stronger. This has resulted in asymmetric intelligence among the 3 parties, and maybe something wonderful will happen later. Of course, breaking through the levels is still the first element. Go, go, go. Jia Yan ran quickly, and Wu Pilot and Lu Ji behind him didn't have much time to react. The outside creature they brought over rushed through the first bridge. Awesome, even if you have some strength, but being able to pass through the Tiandao bridge in my heart at such a fast speed is considered to be a certain level of strength. The great elder was extremely surprised at the performance of Jia Yan below, high in the trees. My heart bridge actually uses the best trembling heart runes to cause a corresponding heart shock wave to the incoming creature. This incoming creature actually doesn't mind the reciprocal wave in his heart. It's obvious. When he came out, he was really a little bit stronger than I expected. The great elder was a little surprised by the speed at which Jia Yan broke through his first level, but when he thought about the obstacles in the subsequent levels, he didn't care so much. He is still confident in his own methods. Even if this coming being is as powerful as him, in his 5-acre land, he, the local snake, has much more methods and strength. So at this moment, he stopped watching Jia Yan's movements, because he knew that Jia Yan would fall into an extremely long-lasting fascination, and even he could not control the time of this fascination. After Jia Yan crossed the bridge, he saw a tree hole at the end of the bridge. He stepped into it. In this tree hole, there was nothing except a piece of black smoke. Let me enter it. Jia Yan was startled for a moment before walking into the huge black smoke. As soon as he entered the black smoke, he instantly felt that his mind was filled with discomfort. When he came back to his senses, he was still a little dizzy. The smoke was so powerful that it actually had a certain impact on my mind. This is not poison, it's just a method that looks like poison but is different from poison. This world is indeed a place beyond my imagination. Jia Yan walked slowly in the smoke, he wanted to see what was next. But before he could make more preparations, his eyes lit up. He actually walked out of that huge area of smoke. Just as Jia Yan walked out of the fog. The great elder of the humanoid race who was at the top originally didn't think that Jia Yan could leave his smoky place quickly, but at this moment, he suddenly almost spit out his saliva. This guy has stood out so quickly. Isn't he affected by my smoke at all? The great elder couldn't believe it at all, because his smoke was actually a weakened version of one of his trump cards. Although it was only a weakened version, ordinary beings of the same level would definitely be stunned for a while after entering it. He began to focus exclusively on Jia Yan. After watching it for a while, he felt a little surprised. What's going on? This guy hasn't felt that I'm spying on him yet. I've been observing him for so long and he still hasn't noticed my presence. This shouldn't be the case. Although it was impossible to know for a while whether Jia Yan was really strong or fake, he could see that the running flying creature had no way of knowing his existence, and even the great elder ignored him. He would not be noticed and angered by the creature, so he directly used his spiritual mind to scan the creature, but there was still no reaction. Is he strong or not? And now that I have carefully observed it, the strength I thought just now is actually completely different from my strength. But there is indeed a sense of strength in his body that makes me afraid. Why is this happening? The great elder was confused. You must know that he is a strong man who has traveled far and wide and traveled to many places. His travels when he was young made him have a high vision and vision. But at this moment, his self-proclaimed knowledge was completely useless. Perhaps this guy comes from a place further away than I imagined. He continued to look at Jia Yan in great surprise. And while he was sizing up Jia Yan came to the last level arranged by the great elder. In fact, for other creatures, it will not be so easy for them to pass the first and second levels, especially the second level. After entering the psychedelic feeling, they will feel whether they are trapped in some kind of battlefield. You have to kill a lot before you can get out. Some people even lose the possibility of going further in the psychedelic world. But for Jia Yan, these two levels were actually very simple and he could pass them directly. Coming to the third level, Jia Yan saw that this was another relatively empty area. This is a square-like place in a tree hole. The surrounding size is still suitable for a strong man to fight. In front of him, a bald man who looked like a human appeared. Hey, the first creature that entered this year is actually an outsider. When Jia Yan arrived here, the bald man looked at Jia Yan from a distance and was surprised for a while. Yes, it's me. I'm an outsider, but you seem to allow outsiders to participate in this kind of path. When the bald man heard this, he showed no anger or other emotions. He just nodded. Yes, outsiders can also enter here, but I think that your strength is probably stronger than that of ordinary juniors. This is somewhat inconsistent with our rules. My strength is stronger than that of ordinary juniors. Jia Yan was stunned. He didn't know that he was actually stronger than the average junior of this race. Because the power of brain waves cannot be released, he relies on actually seeing the combat power of a creature to judge how powerful it is. The combat power that Wu Pila showed in front of him before was not weak at all. Even if she only had one move, she was definitely one of her formidable opponents to Jia Yan. Therefore, he has always been in awe and respect for the stronger creatures in this world, especially young people such as Wu Pila. But now it seems that this bald man actually said that he was better than his juniors. Perhaps, Wu Pila is not considered a junior. But in Jia Yan's opinion, this is completely impossible, because Wu Pila and Lu Ji have always said that they are the juniors. Jia Yan's unclear expression was displayed outside, making the bald man feel that this creature was extremely calm. He, who had a certain understanding of Jia Yan's strength just now, snorted coldly. In short, I don't care if you are a strong person from the outside world. We do welcome outside visitors here. You are very strong, but my requirement here is to defeat me, the gatekeeper. If you can defeat me, you will naturally be able to reach the last great elder. Come on, let me see the strength of you, a powerful person from the outside world. When the bald man's voice just fell,